Alrighty, in this video, we're going to power through our implementation of the makeDiff function as well as the mergeDiff function. Probably won't be able to get it done all in one video, but we'll go ahead and do it. I do want to just take this opportunity just to show you guys how I would set up a test suite for this sort of thing and how I would run the tests and how I would do that. So what we're going to start off with is we're going to stub out our diff. So I'm going to create a file called diff underneath shared, and I'm going to preemptively import Lodash, which will be our only dependency. I'm also going to export a const isUnchanged symbol of isUnchanged. This symbol will be used to determine if nothing in the diff changed between the two values, so that you don't have to bother sending it out to the clients. Then I'm going to export a function makeDiff. It'll have a before, an after, and a location that'll default to an empty string. Then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go ahead and write a couple stubs for a couple other internal methods that are going to be used. So I'll go ahead and before I write the makeDiff function, I'll export function makeDiffArray, which will take before, after, location equals blah. And we're just going to return isUnchanged. Export function makeDiffObject before, after, location equals blah. And we're going to return isUnchanged. And then we're going to write a makeDiff scalar. But makeDiff scalar is very simple, so we'll implement this already. MakeDiff scalar before, after, location equals blah. And then I'm simply going to say return before does not equal after. Question mark after colon isUnchanged. Actually, we don't even need the location for this. So what makeDiff scalar will just say if the before is not the same as after, make sure you use double a strict inequality operator. It'll return the after value. Otherwise, it'll return isUnchanged. And then finally, I'm going to go ahead and stub out our mergeDiff. So export function mergeDiff, which will take a base, a diff, and a location, which will equal 0 or equal blank. And mergeDiff will just return base for now. Now we can implement the makeDiff function because it's really simple. We'll just say if underscore isArray after, then we'll return makeDiffArray with before, after, and location. Then we'll say if underscore isObject after, then return makeDiffObject before, after, location. Otherwise, return makeDiff scalar before, after, location. So the way that this is all going to be written is I'm going to try to make as many shortcuts as possible. So my goal is to compress it as much as possible. So sometimes we'll just completely replace an object. Other times we'll add keys. We can also remove keys. We'll also be able to specify a splice for arrays that don't have objects with IDs. And then we'll have a method called update in our diffs, where if update exists, then what we'll do is we can reorder and or update the objects within that if those objects do have an ID. So now I'm going to go into, whoops, I wanted to put diff in shared, not in server. So let's move that over to shared. And then in tests, I want to create a file called diff.js. So now we have our tests and we have our diff. Now for our tests, I'm going to create a test harness sort of. And I'm going to start off with our test by importing underscore from Lodash. And then I'm going to import makeDiff, mergeDiff, and isUnchanged from \diff or /diff. Then I'm going to write a function. And this function is going to basically go over a list of objects that will a hierarchy of objects, and run tests. Actually, I'll show you guys what those tests will look like first. So I'm going to say run diff tests, and I'm going to pass in an object into it. And we'll start with scalar, our scalar tests, which will be kind of a subcategory of tests. And then we'll have changed on numbers, which will be an array. Now, whenever the runDiff test will recursively loop through all of the properties and subproperties of the object passed in until it finds a property with a value that's an array. Now the array will have 3 values. First is the before, second is the after, and third is the diff. So the before of 1 and an after of 2 should result in a diff of 2 because that's the new value. So, and then for example, we could do unchanged on numbers, which would be, we would do something like 1, 1, before 1, after 1, and the result we expect is unchanged. And then we also want something like changed on type. Changed on type, we'll do a number 1, a string 1, and then what we want back is the string 1. And then we also want to say unchanged on null for sort of an edge case. If we have a before of null, an after of null, then we want is unchanged to be the result. Now before we write any more tests, let's go ahead and write our runDiff test method. So like I said, all it's going to do is it's going to recursively go through all of our objects that we have in the object we passed in until it finds an array, and then it'll run that as a test. So function runDiff tests will take in a tests. Then I'm going to say underscore dot for own of tests, and we're going to get a test and a key. Now, like I said, it's going to be recursive, meaning if it's not an array, we want to runDiff test again on that new value, on the new test. I'm also going to support functions. I'm going to say if underscore is function test, then I'm going to say it and pass in the key, pass in test. Now it is actually what Jasmine will use to run the test, all right? So this is where the test will actually happen. So if I have a function in here that just says expect 1 to be 2, for example, and blah test, then it'll just run this function as a normal unit test. But if it runs into an array, that's a little different. And if it runs into an object, that's different. So let's say else if underscore is object test. If it's an object, we want to runDiff test recursively. But we also want to notify Jasmine that we're in a nested test. And to notify Jasmine that we're in a nested test, we use the describe function. And I'm going to describe a template string with key with a colon. And then the test that I'm passing in internally is simply going to run diff tests on the test object. So this way, I can have, you know, level 1, followed by level 2, followed by level 3, and then all the way down here, I can have my test, you know, test 1. And then so it'll recursively walk through, adding a describe to each one so it nests in Jasmine as well until it hits that test. And then what I'm going to do is say else if underscore is array test. That means it's an actual test. So let's grab those 3 values out of each one of our tests. First value is before, second one is after, third one is diff, and we'll extract that from test. Then I'm going to say const result equals makeDiff on before and after. Then I'm going to say describe, and I'm going to pass in our key again. And I'm actually going to put this, I'm going to enclose these in parentheses. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to test the diff. So I'm going to say it, I'm going to actually write a test here, a test that'll be recognized by Jasmine, it diff. And what I'll do here is we'll put in a simple thing. We'll say expect result to equal diff. So we're saying at this key, expect the result of diffing the before and after diffing it, to be the diff that we expected it to be. And so what's cool about this is this will allow us to write a hierarchy of tests very simply. Because we are using the describe and we're running runDiff test recursively in a describe, it'll stack in Jasmine. So let's go ahead and say gulp server tests dev and actually start running these tests, because we should get tests, we should get failures. Actually, we won't, because we already implemented the scalar function. Whoops, test dev. I remember, good. And now it's running our tests, and they all passed. So 4 specs. Actually, it doesn't look like it picked up on Diff, did it? Shared tests, Diff is there. Let's try doing bleh is, I don't know, something like that. It doesn't look like this is executing, which is unfortunate. So let's go ahead and console log out something. Whoops, syntax error. Something is indeed being invoked. So it looks like we're having an issue with our tests. So if it's a function, else if it's an object, let's figure this out. We have to debug our tests. That's always fun. Console log tests. Well, it is executing. And we should have an it. That's not executing. Seems like isArrayTest is never returning true, which means that it's possible that our recursive function here isn't quite working. So we'll say console log, whoa, or maybe, no, I got that right. So it is recursively going through, oh, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot, I forgot. I'm going to leave this in because this is a very valuable lesson. Arrays are objects. I can't believe I forgot that. This is like JavaScript 101, right? When I'm doing the isObject of test, it's hitting true even for the arrays. So what we can do to fix that is simply swap these two if and else's so that we first check to see if it's an array, then we check to see if it's an object. And now we have all of our tests running. So yeah. I actually don't think I need that space there. There we go. So scalar, colon, and then the test bleh diff failed because it didn't pass our diff test. Anyway, good lesson to learn. I can't believe I forgot that. Like I said, JavaScript 101, but pretty much everything's an object, honestly, except for some things. But with that, I think we'll stop this video here, and in the next video we will work on testing how our arrays are going to get diffed. And later, I'll actually put a to-do here. To-do, when we get to it, add merge test. So that we can test the merges as well. And with that, we'll see you guys later.